Hi, it's Melinda from Alexis and Melinda's Art Space, doing an art journal page today. I saw this technique and thought I'd try it out. Well, the technique isn't ripping up book pages. Technique's in a few minutes. But I'm working in one of my altered books and I really wanted to have a nice sort of solid page for this to work on. So I grabbed that old dictionary, an old novel that I finished reading that wasn't very good to start with, and a crossword book because I just love the crossword sort of boxes in my art. So this is putting down a layer of, I've heard it referred to as underpants, it's really cool, or under papers. You don't see 90% of this when it's covered up, so it's great to use up old books. And I have a lot of old book pages. When I deconstruct books and use them as art journals, I tear out a lot of pages as well. So I've got a plethora of this sort of stuff to stick down. So just using some matte Mod Podge to stick that down with. Sorry, I just thought I heard my mobile beep, but it wasn't. I don't know what that noise was. So using matte Mod Podge just to stick the papers down with. So you put matte Mod Podge under the papers, then I put a layer on top just to seal them. Just adding them in a random pattern. I'm funny, I do like all my words going up the right way, so I try to make that. Sometimes I tear off that white bit. You know how when you read a novel there's like a centimetre of white around the border? Sometimes I tear that off so I've just got words. This time I didn't. And looking at the page, you can see the words in a few places. Most of it you can't, but that's okay. What this does is it also strengthens the page within my art journal. Now, because these pages in a book are traditionally very thin, sometimes I stick two together, 2 to 3 together, depending on what sort of surface, what sort of strength for the page I want, and adding a layer of this sort of collage, whether it's tissue paper or these book pages. You want to use sort of thinner papers. I have used scrapbook papers and cardstock before. It does make your page very sturdy, but sometimes they're a bit of a pain to stick down. So a nice thin layer of paper does actually makes your page a lot sturdier in your art journal. And the amount of gesso and water I'm going to throw at this, I wanted it to make it very sturdy. Plus the matte Mod Podge also seals your page as well. So sealing over the top means that your paints or water-soluble mediums sit on top of the page. They don't go and soak in, so you can move them around and do all sorts of fun stuff. I should have sped this up to 5 times as fast. I thought I'd have lots to say. What I doing there over the spine or the middle of the book between the two pages, I am going over that area. I do that a lot of times in my altered books. It strengthens the pages, and it also means that the pages don't have a sort of gap in between them. I didn't do that when I first started, and some of my pages have torn apart. But that, it also adds bulk to your spine, so it's a toss-up of whether to do it or whether not to do it. Sometimes I don't do it. Sometimes I just put masking tape down. Sometimes I don't do it at all. Just depends. But in these circumstances, I wanted like the flawless page. I didn't want the sort of the gap in the pages you get sometimes between signatures and things. So you just got to be mindful when you're working in altered books. I remove about 1/3 to 1/2 of the pages from my books before I start, just to allow for all this stuff I'm going to stick back in the book. Seems a bit redundant, doesn't it? I remove 1/3 of the book to stick a whole lot of crap back in the book. So just giving it a coat of gesso now. That's just Liquitex gesso. I use this particular gesso as opposed to the other ones I use. This one I picked up at $10 at Spotlight, so I got a good deal on it. It's a more fluid or a more runny gesso, so I use it in different areas. So these little things that I'm sprinkling are Colour Burst Colour Shimmer powders. I don't know whether they're available on the market anymore. I did hear that Colour Blast were discontinuing them. I have transferred them from the Colour Blast pots into little containers, and the powders are water reactive. So you can either you can activate them with water. Here I'm activating them with gesso. So I sprinkle the powders, put wet gesso down, don't let the gesso dry, and sprinkle the powders on top. You don't need much of this powder at all because it does go a long way. So just scraping across with a credit card to mix the powders and activate them, and you get a nice pastel look. Excuse my big head. So you could just saw me there scraping it across, and I had like extra gesso on my scraper, so I decided to scrape it into another page of a different art journal. When I art journal, I tend to have 2 journals or a pile of scrap paper beside me because I've always got extra paint, extra ink, a stencil that has stuff on it that I stamp into a book. So it's handy to have extra paper substrates next to you, whether it's a journal, whether it's sheets of tissue paper or sheets of deli paper, or even sheets of just like plain newsprint paper. It's handy to have them. And I do apologise, my big head does get in the way a lot because I'm sprinkling powders. I've mentioned this quite a lot in my videos. I do have low vision, I wear glasses, but in Australia I don't have the vision for driving, so it gives you a bit of indication how blind as a bat I am, as I put it. So when I sprinkle these powders, sitting back of where I'm sitting in my chair, I can't see if the powders are actually getting on the page. So I do go and put my head under the camera and have a look. So here I've adding some more powders, just spraying. First time I've used these powders, confession time, I have owned them for possibly 2 years, maybe 3. Let's not get into that. I've had them for a little time, let's say that, and I haven't used them because I wanted to find containers to transfer them into because they're in screw top containers, and I thought if I unscrew it and use the container as is, I will spill it everywhere. So I put them into another container with a soft lid and put a drawing pin, you can see it off to the side there, in the top. I poked a couple of holes, so it comes out like a salt shaker, but a very small salt shaker. So what you can do is also activate them with water, so that's what I've done then, and I've probably put a little bit too much water on the page. That's okay, because I put the underpaper down and the gesso and the Mod Podge, the water is sitting on top of my page, so I decided to mop up some of the water in the paint. So these little powders are mixing with the gesso, so these prints will be really cool to use. And the gesso helps to make the powders like set and become non-water reactive, if that makes sense. They're water reactive forever unless you activate them with a permanent product like a gesso or a matte gel medium on a try next to. That would be cool. There's my big head. Sorry about the lighting. I'm trying to fix lighting and things in my studio. I always get shining off it. I must get one of those sort of circle lamps. They may work better, maybe. I'd like a lot of things, and a proper microphone wouldn't go astray, but I've got a whole bigger list of wants. Are they needs? Not really, but I always want stuff. I think as crafters we always want stuff. Ooh, I think I need to brush my hair. So just drying that off. It's important to dry off in layers, and I wanted to get some more colour on that. By blotting it, I took a lot of the colour off. I like that bottom left-hand corner, so I left that and put some more gesso out. I was just having a good old play and seeing what these colours do. So there is a colour label on the front that sort of tells me what the colours are. So here I'm just poking a couple more holes in the top. I had one originally and it just wasn't enough to get the powder out. Like, you don't need a lot of powder, but seriously I wasn't getting enough powder. You can also use, there's a few other products you can use. I believe Ken Oliver has ones in little puffy bottles. I've used those before, I can't remember the name of it. And Lindy Stamp Gang have little shaker bottles of the powder too. They work really well. I may end up using one of those at the end, or maybe I don't. I own one of those in blue. I must get some more colours. And I like they come in a shaker bottle too. And the Ken Oliver ones come in a little bottle with, you sort of poof them out and it has a small spout on, which I much prefer. But I found these ones, so I decided to have a play with these. So just shaking a bit more colour on. I'm working with sort of blues and greens. I do like the page at the end how it came out, but it does take me several tries to get happy with it. So once I shake the powders out, I do scrape them with my old credit card or old gift card. And what that does is that activates and mixes the powder with the gesso. You don't want to scrape too much. So basically you want to scrape sort of once across your page, because if you scrape too much you're just going to muddy it up and you're not going to get sort of the intense bits of colour and then the lighter bits of colour that I like, if that makes sense. So just adding some more colour here. I had so much fun just adding colour, and then I decided to spray some water on top. My water spray bottle was being a pest and not spraying properly. So then I decided to blot again. I don't know why I decided to blot again, because it does take a lot of the colour off. I think I was having fun making those papers as well. So what I want to try next is try these powders on my gel plate. Excuse me, I got an itchy nose, just rubbing my nose. And there's a yawn. It's not a good voiceover without a yawn from Melinda. So I want to try these powders on my gel plate with activating them with possibly white or like a matte gel medium, which would be cool. Like sort of brayer out matte gel medium and then sprinkle the powders on and then see what happens. So lots of things I want to experiment with, just need to find the time. That's what's great about your art journal. It's a safe place to explore and experiment. And if I really turn out and hate the page, stick a bit of glue on the page and glue them together, you get an extra strong page. Not that I've done that too many times in my art journal, I think I've done that once. What I do is I leave the pages in there because when I'm flipping through it, it reminds me of my experimenting and it reminds me that I'm not perfect. And I do include some of my imperfections on YouTube. About 75% of my art journal pages I'm happy with at the end. I find art journaling for me, it's more about the time I take out of my day to sit and play and get messy. I'm not looking for perfection or not looking for a masterpiece, as I say, like a gallery piece. It's more about fun and exploring, pushing the medias and the different things and experimenting different ways to use things. I love to use things in non-traditional ways, that's always fun. So here I'm drying off after I've sprayed the water on, and I'm trying to sort of tip my page a little and keep the intensive colour. Is your number 2. Let's see if we can get to 5 before the end of the video. I'm not tired. It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I had a decent sleep last night, and I don't know, for some reason, every time I sit down to do a voiceover, I haven't done voiceovers in about a month because I'm trying to get organised with my videos and get a bit ahead, just because life's so stinking busy at the moment. And every time I sit down and do voiceovers, I yawn. I could have just got up in the morning, had breakfast, sat down to a video, and I will yawn. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's my computer sleep making me sleepy. I'm very happy with this. The only thing I'm not happy with is one part of drawing I do later in it, but I still like the page. I still like it. Certainly it's different to what I usually do, and this page is not part of a mission or a challenge, which I find my pages come together a bit better if I have a challenge or a mission or some steps or some guidelines to add this next or add that or include these 5 things. It sort of sparks my brain in thinking. I will stare at a blank page and go, I don't know what I want to do. This page was all about experimenting with the powders, and then it was like, well, now I've got a pretty background. What do I do? So you'll see what I do in a minute. So I left all this drying in here. So it did take a fair while to dry. This is sped up 3 times because I had a couple of thick layers of gesso. I had a thick layer of water, and what I wanted to do was draw over the top, so I had to make sure this was bone dry, otherwise I wreck my textures and pens that I draw with. I love watching art journal process videos of other artists I watch on YouTube. I call them artists. I give them a pat on the back and call them an artist. And I love seeing what work they do and then getting inspired by them, which is really cool. So I grabbed out these, I believe these are Dina Wakley stamps. I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong. I bought them secondhand, they didn't come with a package, but it does look like her sort of work. So I took the stamp off so I could clearly see through the transparency there to copy the artwork. I wanted to use that stamp, but it was too small. And this is the bit that I regret. I only could fit half a head on. I did her too big. I was not aiming to do below her knee, but I did do her a little big so her head sort of goes off the page. I was tempting to like not do her head and just do her body, but that would have looked even worse. I enjoy drawing. I enjoy using stamps. They're great for different circumstances, but I find a lot of my stamps are the wrong size when I go to use them. And I wanted to put this directly on the background. So I am using an alcohol marker to do my sketching. Am I using an alcohol marker? Yeah, I think I am. And just doing lots of loose lines. I really love Dina Wakley's loose lines and sort of sketchiness and stuff like that. So that black marker there that I'm doing my journaling lines with is a brush tip marker that's nearly on its way out from Daiso, but again, it is a permanent marker. I didn't want to do a water-soluble marker and activate the sort of powders underneath. They should be fairly well set with the gesso. And I love this sort of big quote on one side, picture on the other side that I'd seen a couple of my art journal people that I watch do. So I decided to do that this time because I haven't done that a lot. So the quote is, love your body regardless of what shape you are. And I'm not sure if I got this quote from somewhere or whether I made it up. Not sure. I do like the wavy lines. My writing is horrendous. I don't like my writing, but when I do these squiggly lines and have sort of do more the long skinny and have a specific sort of lines to draw my handwriting in, I tend to find it's a bit better, if that makes sense. So I just drew some lines and I really like it. Like, you can read it, but it's almost like a design element on the page as well. So I grabbed a white out pen. White pens and I do not get along. We have arguments very often. So this is actually a white out pen from Officeworks, and it has a fine metal tip on it, and hey, it works just as well and doesn't clog up. I've used Posca pens, I've used gel pens, I've used nearly every pen under the sun with a white pen, and it just doesn't work. I clog them up, I dry them out, but this is fantastic. They were, a pack of 2 was about $5, so they're about $2.50 each or something. It could have been even $3, don't know, can't remember. Fairly cheap. And it works just as well. It doesn't rub off. It's a whiteout pen, so it's designed to be really opaque and white out, like wrong text and typing and stuff like that. So it works awesome. So if you're after a decent white pen and don't want to spend a lot of money, check out Officeworks for these whiteout pens. And this one has like a blue barrel and it has a metal tip. You can actually see the metal tip in it. So it has quite a fine tip. A lot of whiteout pens have like thicker tips, and I didn't want a thicker one. So I nearly finished, just decided to trim off the overhang of the page. I should have done that a while ago, but I do want to add a border to my page. I do like, excuse my head, I do like to add borders to my pages. It tends to just frame them. Otherwise, I don't know, unbordered pages that aren't bordered tend to bug me. A lot of things bug me in art, but I will always, nearly always, 99% of the time, add a border. So again, this one's just really simple with my thick chisel tip on this alcohol marker. I believe this is a cheap one from China I got when I ordered something else. And the chisel tip, or the flat tip, is great for just running around the edge. And that's about, I don't know, half a centimetre, so 5 mil. So it's not a big border, but it does add a lot of definition to the page. And then I decided it's too black because why not? If I can add white dots, why not? So I decided to dot around the border, and I really love how this turns out. I love this page, except it would have been better with a head on the person. Maybe next time I'll fit the head in. When I did the drawing of the person, I sort of was copying it and didn't really anticipate how big I was doing it. And of course I did in Texture, so I couldn't rub it out and start again. Any other person would sort of sketch it out in pencil, but no, I like to just go straight in with Texture, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's sort of my motto. So just wanted to add some little marks, dots and dashes. Can't get those words out today. Just to add a bit more mark making, just to fill in sort of the gaps that were there. So quite happy with this page. Let me know what you think if you've played with the Colour Burst Shimmer powders, or any of the other powder products. I want to play more with these. I have to transfer the other 7 or 8 colours to new jars, which is a very tedious task. But I quite like how this page turned out. There's some still photos at the end. So thank you for all our new subscribers that have jumped on board lately. We've had quite a surge, which is great. And leave us a comment and like the video. That'd be much appreciated. And stay around till 1,000 subscribers. We've got massive plans. Alexis and I are thinking on those ones. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.